tonight. Star-studded performances and speeches from political powerhouses all lead down to this: what to expect as Kamala Harris hits the stage to officially accept the Democratic presidential nomination. Plus,
Kamala Harris has failed to deliver peace and national security than at the American southern border.
The Trump campaign heads south to focus their messaging on border security and claims of governmental weaponization.
This act is really just a cudgel that's being used to target pro-life activists.
We break down the backlash to a law about protesting outside abortion clinics. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. It's the biggest night of her political career. Kamala Harris will officially be crowned as the Democrats' presidential nominee. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. From the CBN headquarters in Virginia Beach, I'm Brody Carter. Well, Vice President Kamala Harris will make her case for the White House on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. Her running mate introduced himself to the American public yesterday. The Harris campaign hopes Minnesota Governor Tim Walz will appeal to rural, Rust Belt, and independent voters. As John Jessup reports, that could be a challenge given a potential major Trump endorsement later this week.
On the final night of the DNC, Kamala Harris will attempt to channel the energy laid by fellow Democrats on day 3. That includes solemn moments inside the United Center, like acknowledging the hostages held by Hamas, even as anti-Israel protesters clashed with police outside. Overall, a projection of party unity, trying to capitalize on a feeling used to define the Harris-Walz campaign.
Until joy, joy, joy comes in the morning.
Good evening, everybody!
The star-studded celebration centered on the notion of freedom, a message framed as a choice by familiar party elders like former President Bill Clinton.
Will this president bring us together or tear us apart? Will the president increase the peace, security, and stability and freedom that we enjoy and extend it to others as we can?
Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi praised Harris as a defender of abortion rights and democracy, alluding to the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol.
When the sun rose on January 7th, as our national anthem declares, we gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Now, in this election, we are called upon to do the same.
During his acceptance speech, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz attempting to showcase his small-town roots as an educator and 24 years as a National Guardsman, even though his military record has come under fire. He also trumpeted his record as governor, talking up school lunch programs and gun reform.
But I'm also a dad. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe our first responsibility is to keep our kids safe.
Walz played the role of attack dog, going directly after the Republican ticket.
Their Project 2025 will make things much, much harder for people who are just trying to live their lives. Here's the thing. It's an agenda nobody asked for.
Chief political analyst David Brody offering his assessment.
There was so much energy with his speech, right? He's the coach, and it's like you got the banner on the football field on a Friday night, and he's busting through it with the team. I mean, it was very much a vibe situation, and that kind of goes to the point of this election. You've got policy, but then you've got the vibe.
Democrats hope to keep the momentum going to fuel them to victory in November, although it won't happen without a fight. Former President Donald Trump campaigning in North Carolina Wednesday, speaking behind bulletproof glass during his first outdoor rally since last month's assassination attempt. On the attack, he targeted Harris's record on crime, immigration, and jobs while rolling out a new nickname.
And Comrade Kamala, you know, she's Comrade, the most radical left person ever to run for a high political office in our country.
And waiting in the wings, a potential spoiler with the reports that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is preparing to drop out of the race this week, followed by a possible Trump endorsement. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
A diverse group of Christians, that is, including evangelicals, are rallying behind Kamala Harris ahead of the DNC, aiming to reclaim their faith from Republican ties. The grassroots Christians for Kamala campaign has raised nearly $200,000, with supporters emphasizing their faith as a driving force behind Harris' candidacy. Despite criticism from conservative figures like Franklin Graham, participants are pushing back against the idea that Christianity solely aligns with Republican values, highlighting a potential shift in this political landscape. Joining us to dive a little bit deeper is that journalist who broke the story, Jack Jenkins, with Religion News Service. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. You know what stood out to me and surprised me the most in your article that was found 60% of Democrats identify as Christians. So how does this challenge the Republican narrative that they hold a monopoly on Christian values?
Right. One of the things we've often heard from Republican messengers, for instance, just in this past RNC, a Trump staffer referred to Democrats and leftists as godless, when in fact, if you look at the Democratic Party, not only is it remain majority religious as a party, but it also remains majority Christian. Now, there is a difference between the kind of Christianity you're finding in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, both theologically as well as the makeup. For instance, around 68% of the Republican Party are white Christians, with white evangelicals representing around 30% alone, whereas white evangelicals only represent around 4% of the Democratic Party, with white mainliners and Catholics running out another 20%. An additional subset there are Black Protestants, which are 16% of the Democratic Party, as well as Hispanic Catholics and other Christians. So what you get is a very more diverse, or more racially diverse and tradition diverse form of Christianity that often gets expressed. And we saw that in the Christians for Kamala call. It was a much broader spectrum of American Christianity than you might find in some Republican spaces, which tend to lean heavily into white Catholic and white evangelical spaces, although not exclusively.
Well, Jack, in your article, you also touched on a broad range of issues being addressed by Christian supporters of Kamala Harris. Is there room in these groups for Christians with conservative views on abortion and religious liberty?
So that is an interesting question, right? So there are 2 points of tension here. On the one hand, it is true that the majority of Catholics and the majority of white mainline Protestants and the majority of Black Protestants actually believe that abortion should be legal in all or most cases. In fact, you find many Christian groups in the United States where that's the case. But when you get down to 2 groups in particular, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and white evangelicals, the reverse is aggressively the case, where that group very much opposes abortion in many cases, if not all cases. So finding a place where, for instance, evangelicals who might be uncomfortable with Trump or uncomfortable with his policies or even just his affect, finding a place for them among Democrats is an aspect of the challenge here, particularly given that Democrats are leaning heavily into abortion rights as an aspect of this race. So squaring that circle seems somewhat difficult, which is why in the Christians for Kamala call, as well as in the Evangelicals for Harris call later in that same week, you heard people kind of appealing to a broader idea, saying, okay, maybe you have this position on abortion, but you have to think about the broader concerns about democracy, or whether or not we're really doing enough to love our neighbor, those sorts of things, hoping to kind of not necessarily cancel out that position that is popular among conservative Christians, but to add to it and try to pull at least a few of them into the Democratic camp.
Well, Jack Jenkins, thank you very much for your time, your insight. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we will look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, sir. Well, one of the biggest issues of this election is immigration. Under the Biden-Harris administration, migrant encounters on the southern border have broken historical records. Last year alone, there were 2.5 million, and the Vance Trump ticket is looking to seize on that record. Former President Trump toured part of the border today, while Senator Vance held a campaign event on that issue. CBN's Jenna Browder has more on that from our D.C. newsroom. Jenna Browder.
Well, Brody, call it counter-programming as Democrats prepare to formally nominate Kamala Harris tonight in Chicago. Trump and Vance are down south, hoping to steal a little bit of that limelight. Trump doing a border tour in Arizona, and Vance at a campaign event in Georgia. Vance pointing to the handling of the border over the last 3 years and the role Harris has played in it as vice president.
We have an ability to make this country much safer than it is today. We just need better leadership. We need better leadership at the federal level in particular, because it's the federal government that opened up the southern border and let all these drug cartels bring the drug and crime into our communities. And we're here, of course, not far from where Laken Riley was born and raised. A beautiful, beautiful young girl who would still be alive today if Kamala Harris had done her job and not let these drug cartels come into our community.
And polling consistently shows immigration, along with the economy, as the top issue for voters this election. The latest Economist YouGov poll reporting 54% of voters see those as the most pressing matters. It is a tough topic for Democrats given the numbers, but there is a little bit of a bright spot, Brody, for the Harris-Walz campaign. Migrant crossings have actually gone down over the past 5 months. It is a figure no doubt they'll be looking to highlight as they try to turn the table on the issue of immigration. Brody?
Jenna Browder from Washington, D.C., thank you very much for that report. Turning now to the economy, more Americans are applying for new unemployment benefits while still historically low. Newly released Labor Department numbers show the latest jobless claims rose about 4,000 from the previous week up to 232,000. Today's reports, they come on the heels of Labor Department data showing America's job market has not been as strong as originally reported. Employers added 818,000 fewer jobs in the 12 months through last March. The new numbers come from state unemployment tax records, which are more comprehensive but take longer to produce. No word on how this might impact any plans by the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates in September. Well, up next on Faith Nation, while the war in Gaza rages on, U.S. officials believe Iran is trying to sow chaos on American soil. Welcome back. The United States is trying to break through a stalemate in negotiations to end the fighting in Gaza and bring Israeli hostages home. Teams are headed to Cairo in the coming days as part of a last-ditch effort to salvage a deal. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has reportedly added a new demand to ceasefire negotiations, his own survival. Israeli media reports an Egyptian official said Sinwar wants assurances that he won't be killed, despite previously stating that he'd be proud to die fighting Israel. Now, Reuters reports another holdup is disagreement over IDF troops operating in the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists on maintaining an IDF presence along the Philadelphia corridor at the southern Gaza-Egypt border. Here in the U.S., American hostage families are urging both sides to reach an agreement.
This is a terrible humanitarian crisis. Time is running out, and all leaders must work together in a bipartisan fashion to put pressure on both Hamas and the Israeli government and reach a deal that is so much overdue.
Meanwhile, heavy fighting on Israel's border with Lebanon continues. The IDF pounded more than 10 Hezbollah targets overnight. The terror group responded by bombing an Israeli border town. While the war in the Middle East continues to rage on, Iran is actively interfering, that is, in the U.S. presidential election. The FBI, along with other intelligence agencies, confirmed the country recently targeted both the Trump and Harris campaigns, gaining access to Trump's tickets, systems, and internal communication servers. Experts warn this kind of meddling will continue, and as national security correspondent Caitlin Burke reports, they predict the Trump campaign will remain the primary target.
Our adversaries believe there are election outcomes that favor them, and that's why they interfere.
The FBI describes Iran's activity as increasingly aggressive during this election cycle, and former intelligence official Michael Pregent tells CBN News that's likely because the Islamic regime believes a win by Kamala Harris is in its best interest.
I just think our adversaries are not really worried about this administration, but they are hearing tough language from the Trump campaign. So with regards to a terrorist attack, there's no reason to conduct one because that would only help Trump. When it comes to an email hack on the DNC, that would only help Trump as well. So I would think that our adversaries will continue to push disinformation and misinformation into our social media.
Microsoft first reported news of this targeted hacking against the Trump campaign and announced their techs have also uncovered election interference attempts from Russia and China.
We should get to a place where our adversaries fear a Democrat president and a Republican president, but now they tend to pick the racehorse.
House Intelligence Chairman Congressman Mike Turner recently blasted the Biden administration for failing to hold Iran responsible for multiple acts.
The administration is both on the hacking side, on the misinformation side, and on the alleged attempt on Donald Trump's life is not holding Iran accountable. There's no red line.
Turner says the administration's silence only emboldens Iran to increase its efforts.
There is not a response that impacts Iran or that has a deterrent effect or holds them accountable. And that, of course, results in increased activity and increased emboldening of Iran to meddle in our elections and to I think, have people at risk in our country.
National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby counters the administration has repeatedly raised concern over Iranian cyber attacks, adding that these recent attempts are nothing new for the regime. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Coming up, pro-life activists say they're being unfairly targeted by the Justice Department. We take a look at this trend when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. A federal jury has convicted 7 pro-life activists of civil rights offenses for blocking the entrance to an abortion clinic in Michigan. The Justice Department says the group sat or stood in front of the doorway so no one could enter. One defendant is even accused of chaining herself to a door. Another followed an employee around the building, and according to prosecutors, this violated a law called the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, or the FACE Act. That law punishes those who target reproductive health facilities, including abortion clinics and pro-life pregnancy centers. Violators can face hefty fines or even prison time. Sentencing dates for this case will be announced at a later date, and defense attorneys say they plan to appeal. Now, this certainly is not the first time pro-life activists have been convicted of violating the FACE Act, and critics say the Biden administration's Justice Department is unfairly prosecuting them. CBN's Billy Hallowell has the story.
One long-standing symbol of the abortion battle happens outside in the form of protests. Since the end of Roe v. Wade, Americans are also hearing more about the federal law protecting clinics.
The FACE Act stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It was instituted in 1994 under the Clinton administration. And if you go to the DOJ's website, its stated purpose is to protect access to reproductive health, which is a euphemism for abortion.
The law protects churches and clinics, including pro-life pregnancy centers, although critics clearly see its enforcement as one-sided.
What pro-lifers and conservatives have long claimed is that actually this act is really just a cudgel that's being used to target pro-life activists. And for the longest time, we didn't have the data to really substantiate that. And now we do.
Attorney Aaron Hawley with the Alliance Defending Freedom calls new data unearthed at the Justice Department troubling.
After the fall of Roe, there's no question that FACE Act prosecutions, FACE Act investigations have ramped up exponentially. In 2022 alone, there were over 20 prosecutions of pro-life individuals.
At the same time, records show a different approach towards dozens of arson cases at various churches and pregnancy centers.
We see very few prosecutions at those sorts of individuals who are targeting pro-life facilities. Rather, the vast majority of them are targeting pro-life individuals who are protesting or praying at abortion centers.
Van Natta says DOJ data on FACE Act violations between 1994 and 2024 is jarring.
There are approximately 211 cases, and around 97% of those cases were targeted at pro-life or anti-abortion activists.
She points to a specific increase in prosecutions under the Biden administration.
The Biden's DOJ is responsible for over a quarter of all FACE Act prosecutions in the law's 30-year history, which is pretty significant. And he's also responsible for about 24% of the cases targeting pro-life activists.
Martin Cannon at the Thomas More Society sees the same pattern.
What has changed is the frequency of the prosecutions and also a tactic that the DOJ uses. Let's talk about frequency first. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've handled a couple of FACE cases over the years, and maybe 2, and over 30 years. I've done about 4 in the last 5 years or or so. The Biden administration literally pulled out all the stops.
When reached by CBN News, the Justice Department did not respond to specific questions about the data.
Think about just one individual, Lauren Handy. I believe her sentence was 57 months. That's over 4 years, plus 3 years of supervised release. That's an awful long time for a nonviolent sort of protest.
Cannon represents Handy and argues she didn't even violate the FACE Act.
She went into the clinic with her 9 cohorts. 2, maybe 3 of them blocked doors, very peacefully, but blocked doors. The other 7 or 8 simply sat in chairs, singing, praying, handing out some pamphlets and things. There is no decent argument to be made that this was a FACE violation.
These attorneys and others see a troubling pattern of heavy-handedness that's resulted in unfair sentencing.
Now, under Biden's DOJ, you have elderly women who are being sentenced to 2 years in prison for peacefully praying in an abortion clinic, not making violent threats, certainly not making bomb threats. So the sentencing is wildly disproportionate.
The Thomas More Society is appealing Handy's case and seeking to challenge the constitutionality of the FACE Act. We'll continue to cover this story as it unfolds. Billy Hollowell, CBN News.
Coming up, a miraculous reunion years in the making. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a joyful reunion for a South Carolina woman and her cat, all thanks to a microchip. It's been more than a decade since Jennifer Ravenel's cat Sam went missing from her farm. Jennifer adopted Sam in 2011. The two became inseparable. 2 years later, the beloved pet went missing after being spooked by a dog. Jennifer contacted the Charleston Animal Society for help, and after 11 years, she finally got the call from the shelter that she'd been waiting for. Jennifer says that she never gave up hope, calling that reunion a miracle. Thank God for our pets and those who care for them too. That'll do it for us here on Faith Nation. See you tomorrow.